Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new forecast. Today, we're talking about a pretty big severe weather system coming in through the central and southern plains. Right now, though, there's not really much to talk about, at least today, but there is a level 2 slight risk down here in southern Oklahoma and northern Texas. We will be kind of keeping an eye on that because there is a bit of a tornado threat down there and kind of up here in the Midwest as well. And right now, this is all because of a couple just weak lows moving through, bringing in jet stream energy throughout the plains. Uh, but this is only a smaller event. We'll be talking about tomorrow mostly, because as we go through most of the day tomorrow, we see this pretty big system start poking out from Canada, and it's going to start bringing a lot of jet stream energy downwards. Let's go and continue this here, especially into the overnight hours. We can really see the jet stream, because here's the low pressure right here. Here's the low pressure system, and the jet stream energy, jet stream winds crank up 40, 50, maybe even 60 knots in some areas. But there's going to be quite a bit of moisture as well, instability. The low level jet is also going to be there. So we're definitely watching tomorrow evening and overnight hours, as there will be kind of a triple point setting up across Oklahoma and Kansas. Let's go ahead and go to temperature here. Yeah, that's not gonna stay. Oh, that's. So I'm just moving around a couple things on my desk. There we go. You can stay. You stay. Whatever. Anyways, and right now, some like rain and thunderstorms did kind of bring down some temperatures across Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas from the past day or two. Uh, but again, we'll be kind of looking more off into tomorrow when some relatively sunny. Uh, the sun will come out a lot more and really heat up the atmosphere here and create a lot more instability. So right now we're really looking out kind of in this area for Oklahoma and Kansas for some of the more significant severe weather. And going into Monday here, or sorry, late Monday into Tuesday, you can kind of see where there may be a cold front moving through here, where you can really see the separation of 70s and 60s. So we'll be watching that because that's where the storms are going to fire off. But again, we're going to have to watch that triple point and that warm sector for the worst storms. That's going to be kind of out in this section. And let's go into dew point. And right now, there's actually quite a bit of moisture right now that are up in the plains. And it's going to stay this way for the next few days. In the 60s, mid 60s to even the low 70s in some very isolated spots. And that's going to help create a lot of instability. And yeah, see, going into late Sunday and even Monday, there's going to be some 60s trying to, or sorry, 70s trying to poke out there just north of the Red River. And this is going to continue happening up until Tuesday. And again, we can kind of see where that cold front starts to kind of swing through a little bit here. And we're gonna have to keep a very close eye on the storm system because honestly, this could be a pretty bad scenario depending on how the storm structure goes. But again, just look at how much moisture there is. There's it's like upper 60s and even some 70s there in Oklahoma. That's going to be a prime environment for storms for sure. And going into, let's go look at the Cape values here. Mixed layer Cape. For this one, I'm going to go to more regional. There we go. And right now, Cape values are pretty low, isolated, like patches here and there. But we're really going to be watching for tomorrow later this afternoon, where we do have a lot more patch. It's more to kind of spread out. especially down here across the Red River. That's where we're going to see some storms, some severe, strong to severe hail, winds, maybe even a tornado or two. But what we're really watching is for tomorrow, and this is why especially going into the overnight hours here. Backtrack a little bit. Going into the overnight hours, this is what's concerning. The Oklahoma City metro area has high CAPE values, well over here. It's well over 3,000 joules per kilogram, and this is going to set up a prime environment for storms because we're expecting them to fire up here where the low is, which is pretty much right here. You can clearly see some of that CAPE value like swirling around it a little bit. The dry line will set up here in the Texas Panhandle, warm front and cold front, and we're going to see storms fire off pretty much in this area and track southeast, and particularly with CAPE values this high in central Oklahoma. Oklahoma City's going to have to really keep an eye on some of these storms as they enter the area, and then the low pressure system going into Tuesday will pass by, and the CAPE values will shift. The instability will shift east and southeast. Let's go and look at the significant tornado parameter, and I want to look at this because this is a good way to determine the higher tornado possibilities here. This afternoon and evening, there is some uptick down there across the Red River. That's where we are expecting possibly a tornado or two. But we're really gonna watch into tomorrow. Just watch how the tornado parameter just oopsies, didn't me do that. And watch how the tornado parameter just kind of just straight up spikes to was that about 2 to 3 oopsies across central Oklahoma. So we really have to watch here in central Oklahoma, which does include Oklahoma City, for the overnight hours, because this is when the low level jet starts to kick in. So if you ask me, depending on what the models for reflectivity say, we could see a couple tornadoes in and around the Oklahoma City area overnight tomorrow, from Monday into Tuesday. So we're really gonna have to keep an eye on that. And then again, this should all shift eastward, and depending on what's going on in the morning of Tuesday, could even continue seeing a slight tornado possibility going into the early morning hours. And now let's go into reflectivity here. And this is a little outdated, but there are some rain and storms going on in southern Oklahoma and northern Texas. Not severe yet, but they are expected to become more severe as time goes by. And then later this afternoon and evening, we can continue to see a bit of an uptick in strength there. And we're really watching into late Monday into Tuesday. Notice how for most of Monday, there's really nothing going on in central Oklahoma and Kansas. This is actually, believe it or not, going to be bad because this leaves the atmosphere to continuously recover and become stronger and become more of a prime environment for severe storms. But going into Wednesday here, we see storms starting to fire off because remember, the low pressure system's about right here, and it's going to fire off storms in the warm sector across western Kansas, northwest Oklahoma, and you can actually see severe storm right here with that updraft helicity model. And going off further into the day, watch how the severe storms kind of explode here into more of a cluster or embedded supercellular structure here across central Oklahoma. We're really going to have to watch this. And also this area up here, couple severe storms possible, but if this is just along the warm front, we may need to watch that area for a couple tornadoes as well. So basically, really need to keep an eye on these storms, especially these ones in the Oklahoma City metro area overnight tomorrow night. Let's continue the model run here, and they'll become more spread out and weakened in the early morning hours. But won't rule out more severe storms and maybe even a isolated tornado or two on that front edge there in eastern Oklahoma, especially with the strong overnight nocturnal low level jet. So definitely keeping a very close eye on that. The cap, there is a cap in place, and that's going to be a little questionable. but without any storms throughout the most of the day until the overnight hours, that cap should wither away and pretty much completely disappear. And let's go and look at hodographs here. This is a good way to check for tornado possibilities. Going off into Monday. Yeah, they're kind of enlarged. So, yeah, definitely looking like we could see a couple tornadoes tomorrow. And going into the Storm Prediction Center, we have a level 2 slight risk down here across southern Oklahoma and northern Texas, which includes Wichita Falls, just northeast of the Abilene area, and east of Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And this is mostly driven by wind and hail, but we do have a slight risk of severe weather, or sorry, 2% tornado risk. Two of them actually, one up here in Iowa and Minnesota. Gonna keep a close eye on that as well. A little 2% risk, and another 2% risk there, which does include Wichita Falls. So keeping a close eye on that. Wind risk is actually kind of low, 60, maybe 65 mile per hour winds from like the Great Lakes region down to Texas, which does include Oklahoma City, Norman, Tulsa, Fort Sill, Oklahoma, Wichita Falls, Dallas, Abilene, Texas, and Dallas, Texas. It's mostly driven by hail though here, where we do have a 15% risk for up to golf ball size hail here in southern Oklahoma and northern Texas, which does include Wichita Falls, Texas. So keeping a close eye on today as well, but we're really watching tomorrow where we have a much larger and significant slight area here. And this does include Oklahoma City, Woodward, Oklahoma, Liberal, Garden City, Kansas, and even up here, we do have a slight risk. This is where I'm kind of watching another possible tornado prone area for Lincoln and Omaha, Nebraska, and western Iowa there, or more like southwestern Iowa. This is mostly going to be driven by wind and hail, but there is a slight tornado risk. I do expect this to be shifted south or increased south. Maybe even have a new 5% area somewhere in there. But this does include Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and Woodward, Oklahoma. It will be a mostly Oklahoma event, unfortunately, when it comes to the Oklahoma probabilities because of the nocturnal jet kicking in overnight. And then we do have wind risk, of course. And we have a 15% chance for 60 to 70 mile per hour winds, which does include Oklahoma City, Fort Sill, Woodward, Oklahoma, Liberal, and Garden City, Kansas, and up here, Omaha and Lincoln, Nebraska, and southwestern Iowa. 60, 70 mile per hour winds, and outside of that, 60, 65, give or take, in the brown. And hail up to golf ball size in both areas. Maybe isolated one here and there that is larger, considering we have 2,000 to 3,500 joules per kilogram in some spots. And going into Tuesday here, with the continuation of severe storms in far eastern Oklahoma and even a slight risk here in southeastern Oklahoma and pretty much in the Arklatex region. We have a slight risk there. Nothing significant, mostly wind and hail, maybe an isolated tornado or two, especially with that complex that moves through, which is causing that there. And if you liked this forecast, leave a like and subscribe. And I will be going live if it's needed tomorrow in the evening hours, depending on what time the storms fire and how significant they get. But it may, if it's really late in the afternoon and evening, it may just be, or sorry, if late in the evening and overnight, I may just do some updates here and there, and I will not be able to go live. But if it's a little earlier in the evening, I'll be able to go live and cover those storms via live radar. But if you guys enjoyed this forecast, leave a like and subscribe. Or if you're watching on any other social medias, hit that follow button. And have a safe day. A safe and good day.